Do you ever wonder why the most cutthroat people in your office always seem to get the promotions while you stay stuck? Does it feel like the world rewards the people who play dirty and ignores the ones who follow all the rules? We are often told that being a good person is the only true requirement for reaching the top of the mountain. However, the data on high achievers tells a much more complicated and uncomfortable story about human nature. Most of the traits we call toxic are actually survival mechanisms that have been refined over thousands of years of evolution. These traits are not inherently evil, but they are incredibly effective tools when used with surgical precision and total emotional detachment. Today we are going to look at the 7 shadow strengths that allow the elite to dominate their fields while everyone else struggles. This is not about becoming a villain, but it is about understanding the psychological weapons used by the most successful people on Earth. Society spends a lot of time teaching us that being agreeable is the highest virtue a person can possess. We are told to be kind and to always put the needs of the group before our own personal desires. This advice is great for maintaining a peaceful community, but it is often a recipe for professional and financial stagnation. Most of the people you admire for their massive success possess a set of traits that would make a normal person flinch. They are not afraid to be the bad guy if it means protecting their vision or securing a massive win. We need to look at the dark triad, which is a group of 3 personality traits including narcissism, psychopathy and Machiavellianism. Psychologists use this term to describe people who are socially dominant and highly focused on their own personal gain. While these traits can be destructive in their extreme forms, they provide a massive competitive edge when they are tempered by high intelligence. The first trait that drives massive success is a very specific type of narcissism that we call strategic self-belief. Most people view narcissists as annoying because they are constantly seeking attention and praise from others. However, a subclinical narcissist is someone who has a very high sense of self-worth without being mentally ill. This trait allows a person to believe in a vision that sounds completely insane to the average member of the public. When Steve Jobs told his engineers to do the impossible, he was using his ego to bend their reality to his will. You need a massive amount of self-importance to believe that you are the one who can change an entire industry. This ego acts as a shield that protects the visionary from the constant noise of critics and the doubt of the masses. The second trait is Machiavellianism, which is named after Niccolò Machiavelli, who was a famous political advisor in 16th century Italy. This trait is often associated with being a sneaky person who manipulates others for fun. In reality, it is simply the ability to see the world as a series of systems and games rather than emotional connections. A Machiavellian person does not get offended by office politics because they see them as part of the natural landscape. They understand that every person has a set of incentives and they learn how to align those incentives with their goals. While others are busy getting their feelings hurt, the systemic player is busy moving the pieces on the board. They prioritize the mission over the mood of the room, and that is why they often end up in charge. The third trait involves a complete lack of agreeableness, which manifests as a personality that is naturally prone to defiance. Most people are wired to seek harmony and they will often agree with a bad idea just to avoid a conflict. The calculated defier is the person who is perfectly comfortable being the most disliked person in the meeting. They do not care about social norms if those norms are preventing them from achieving a superior outcome. Every major innovation in human history started as an act of defiance against the established order of things. You cannot disrupt an industry if you are constantly worried about stepping on the toes of the current leaders. The ability to endure social isolation is a superpower that most people simply do not have the stomach to use. Our fourth trait is cognitive empathy, which is very different from the emotional empathy most of us feel daily. Emotional empathy is when you actually feel the pain or the joy of another person as if it were your own. Cognitive empathy is the intellectual ability to understand how someone thinks without actually feeling what they are feeling. This allows a person to be a master negotiator because they can predict exactly what the other side wants to hear. They can read the room with incredible accuracy while remaining completely calm and unaffected by the emotions around them. By staying emotionally detached, you can see the traps and opportunities that others miss because they are too caught up in the drama. The fifth trait is what we call social camouflage, which is the ability to mimic the status and behaviors of the elite. This is often viewed as being fake because it involves changing your personality to fit your environment. High achievers understand that different rooms require different versions of themselves to be effective and persuasive. They might be aggressive in a sales meeting, but quiet and humble when speaking to a mentor. This is not about being dishonest, but it is about using your persona as a tool to open doors. A successful person knows that authenticity is often a luxury that can get in the way of progress. They are willing to wear the mask that is required to win the trust of the people who hold the keys. The sixth trait is adaptive impulsivity, which is the tendency to take massive risks without overthinking the potential downsides. We are taught from a young age to be careful and to always have a backup plan before we take a leap. The problem with this advice is that the best opportunities in life are usually gone by the time you have a plan. Successful people have a bias toward action that often looks like reckless behavior to the average person. They are willing to bet their last dollar on an idea because they trust their ability to figure it out later. This trait is grounded in the belief that the cost of inaction is always higher than the cost of a mistake. They would rather fail fast and learn a lesson than spend their whole life wondering what might have happened. The final trait is productive paranoia, which is a state of constant hypervigilance regarding your competition and your environment. Andy Grove was the former CEO of Intel, and he famously wrote a book titled Only the Paranoid Survive to explain this. This trait is usually seen as an anxiety disorder that ruins a person's peace of mind. In the context of high performance, it is the radar that detects a threat long before it hits the radar of others. The productive paranoid never assumes that their success is permanent or that their position is safe from the world. This fear does not paralyze them, but it drives them to innovate and improve at a frantic and relentless pace. While others are celebrating their wins, the paranoid achiever is already preparing for the next war. Understanding these 7 traits is not an invitation to become a heartless person in your daily life. It is an invitation to stop judging yourself for having a dark side that wants to win at any cost. Success is a complex game that requires more than just hard work and a positive attitude for most people. It requires a willingness to use the parts of your personality that society told you to hide. If you can learn to harness your ego, your defiance and your paranoia, you will become an unstoppable force. You will start to see the world as it really is, rather than how the textbooks say it should be. The most successful people have integrated their light and their shadow to create a version of themselves built for the hunt. Now that you know the truth, the only question left is whether you have the courage to use it. Thank you for watching.